In a dark corner of the human soul, where isolation meets craving and estrangement mingles with disorder, a question arises, shocking at first glance, even unthinkable to the mind and heart. What could drive a human being to engage in sexual acts with animals? It's not a question posed in public gatherings, nor a topic the media discusses openly. Schools don't teach it, and universities barely whisper about it in hidden corners of psychology books. Yet the reality is, this phenomenon exists, disturbing, growing in some societies, and hiding beneath the surface of silence. Silence doesn't cure it, it merely masks it until it explodes into undeniable reality. Bestiality, what science refers to as zoophilia, is not a random impulse or a momentary deviation. It is a deep psychological distortion, rooted in damaged regions of consciousness and the unconscious. It does not appear suddenly, nor does it grow from nothing. It's the product of cumulative trauma, chronic emotional neglect, social alienation, and the gradual diversion of sexual desire from its natural course. So what pushes a person to such a level of moral and human collapse? What makes the mind silence its conscience, freeze its innate sense of dignity, and reduce itself to acts that degrade its own humanity? Is it a mental illness, a moral failure, a product of unrestrained desire, or the natural result of a culture saturated with pornography and spiritual emptiness? Let us get closer. In many cases, it doesn't begin with a conscious decision to cross a line. It begins with unchecked lust, with frequent indulgence in masturbation, with an addiction to pornography, with isolation, boredom, and apathy, until the soul finds itself no longer satisfied by the natural or the ordinary. It begins seeking novelty, extreme stimulation, even if it means abandoning all sense of humanity. As a person continues to surrender to lust without self-awareness, moral boundaries dissolve. What was once unthinkable becomes possible. Repeated indulgence numbs the conscience. The internal compass begins to fail. Then comes a moment of total collapse. A moment when the person abandons emotional intimacy and seeks out an animalistic act. He looks not for love, but for thrill. Not for connection, but for gratification. Not for meaning, but for instant pleasure. At this point, the animal ceases to be a creature of nature. It becomes a sexual tool. And the human being ceases to be a rational soul. He becomes a slave to his urges. Sadly, psychological studies have revealed that a significant number of people who engage in bestiality were themselves victims of sexual abuse in childhood. Their concept of sexuality was formed through pain, confusion, and humiliation. They never learned that human intimacy is built on mutual respect, tenderness, and love. So as adults, they struggle to bond with human partners. They search for submission, not companionship. They seek control, not connection. And in the silence and helplessness of an animal, they find what they falsely perceive as safety. But does this justify the act? Absolutely not. Even in the depths of trauma, the human being still carries within him a whisper called innate nature. This voice never dies, even if it weakens. It screams silently each time a person approaches the cliff of depravity. It warns, it pleads, and it weeps in shame after moments falsely called pleasure. The real danger, however, lies not only in the act, but in what follows. Those who engage in such behavior often experience crippling guilt, self-hatred, and deep emotional shame. They lose their self-worth. They may become depressed, socially withdrawn, or even suicidal. Physically, bestiality is a biological disaster. Animals, despite their appearance, harbor bacteria, viruses, and parasites that are often harmless to them, but deadly to humans. Some of the most dangerous diseases in history have come from cross-species transmission, often triggered by unnatural contact between humans and animals. To violate nature's design is to invite consequences, often irreversible. Now let us look through a moral and religious lens. In Islam, as in all divine religions, sexuality is sacred. It is not simply a physical act, but a union of souls, a bond of trust, and a divine covenant. Islam doesn't just prohibit fornication and homosexuality, it absolutely forbids bestiality and considers it one of the vilest offenses that strip a person of his humanity. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did not remain silent about this behavior. He explicitly warned against it and described it as an act that places a person outside the realm of moral purity. This wasn't mere punishment. It was a rescue, a cry that says, "Return to your soul. Do not extinguish your inner light. Do not forget, you were created human. Psychologically, every deviation from natural instinct leaves a scar on the soul. Even if the person continues in the behavior, their spirit remembers what is right. Their inner compass, though buried, still points to truth. And so society must take a stand. We must stop mocking those who fall into this abyss. We must stop pretending this issue doesn't exist. We must open the door to real psychological healing, protect children from exposure to early sexual trauma, shield them from pornography, and teach them that sexuality is not just about the body, but the soul. We must challenge the cultural narrative that promotes sexual indulgence, glorifies depravity, labels perversion as experimentation, and encourages individuals to try everything in the name of freedom. Because bestiality is not a beginning, it is the extreme end of a path that started with small steps: a glance, a thought, an addiction, a habit, a gradual moral erosion. Beware of the first step. The path does not announce its destination. When a human being abandons faith and turns his back on his inner compass, he doesn't merely descend to the level of animals, he sinks below them. For animals act by instinct, but man, he was created with reason, with choice, with dignity. And you, deep within yourself, know the truth. You were not created for this. Your body is not a tool for destruction, it is a vessel for light. Return. Do not be ashamed of regret. Be ashamed of persistence. Do not listen to those who beautify what is ugly. Listen to that ancient voice within, the voice of truth, of nature, of divinity, calling out in every moment, you were made for far greater things. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share it with your friends, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel to get our latest videos.